Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. It's great that you could join me here this weekend on our weekend edition of the Cabral Concept that we affectionately call our Cabral HouseCalls. This is my opportunity to reach out to people all around the world and make sure that their questions have been heard, that hopefully I'm able to provide some type of answer to begin to help them to move in that right direction. So these are always great shows because I never really know the question ahead of time. At most, I read it over before I actually sat down in my chair, but most times I'm simply just reading them for the first time right along with you. So the nice thing is, though, that we have seen, you name it, we've seen it in our practice. We really have. And that's simply what comes along with being in practice for a long time. That's really it. So what I try to do is I share my insights. I share what we've done in the past and how I would move forward if you were literally working with us inside of the practice. So these questions come in from the stephencabral.com/ask Cabral. And we're about 10 to 12 weeks in the queue for when the question's actually read and answered, simply because of the volume of the people writing in. But you can get your question answered the same day at cabralsupportgroup.com. It's a free Facebook group. We have over 5,000 strong inside of that group, people from all over the world willing to give their support to you. And also my health coaching team answers questions right along with them. So it's a great place. If you haven't joined, if you haven't gone on over there, highly recommend it. That's cabralsupportgroup.com. So without further ado, let's check out who the first question is from. And first question's from Kaitlin. Let's get you the show number today. Today is episode 1191. So head on over to stephencabral.com/1191 and you'll be able to follow along with all of the questions as I read them. First one's from Kaitlin, and it says, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm a lost 22-year-old college student. I've had lots of issues for about 5 years. It started with pain in my upper abdomen, bloating, constipation after I ate. Lasted on and off for 4 years, then suddenly the pain went away and bloating and constipation remained with no change in diet or supplementation. I was diagnosed with IBS about a year ago, and I've been trying to follow the Low FODMAP diet. However, I still experience low energy, tiredness, brain fog, and I'm unable to lose weight even though I eat really well in school for nutrition. I work out frequently. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge." So, Kaitlin, I'm happy to help with this question. I invite you to go back to a previous podcast. I invite everyone to do that because the answers are there. So the previous podcast was entitled, "Why Candida Diets Don't Work." So a FODMAP diet is a great way to lessen the amount of bacterial growth and candida in the gut. However, it does not rebalance the gut and it does not fully remove it. So Kaitlin, I'd be willing to bet pretty much everything I have that you have either one of four things: parasite, H. pylori, candida, or SIBO. And if I really had to bet, I would bet that it's SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I recommend running an organic acids test and a stool test. If you run those two tests, you will find your answer. If you want one more test to do, it would be the food sensitivity test. You can find those, you can always find them in the show notes. You can simply go to stephencabral.com/1191 or head on over to equilibriumnutrition.com to run those labs right at home. You will find what type of overgrowth you have, and then you will get a personalized plan of how to get rid of that. Of course, you never have to do it with myself or my team. You can simply ask, again, you can't ask your PCP, but if you find a local integrative health practitioner or you find a local doctor that specializes in digestion and the gut from a naturopathic perspective or a functional medicine perspective, they'll be able to help you with that as well. Again, it does matter who's giving you your plan, but I can tell you this, you will find your answer that way. Now, if you don't want to run the labs and it's just not for you, then I could also recommend doing the candida and bacterial overgrowth plan and simply adding the citricidal drops to that. All of that is also over at equilibriumnutrition.com. And if you ever have follow-up questions, head on over to cabralsupportgroup.com. Feel free to ask them right there. All right, Anastasia is up next. She writes in, hello, Dr. Cabral. I have a question about a sensitive topic and something I'm pretty ashamed about. I'm a 24-year-old female with excessive hair growth on my nipples, the chest area between my breasts, my stomach, and some annoying hairs on my neck. Naturally, I'm incredibly embarrassed and don't feel very feminine. This really takes on a large toll mentally. I've had some pretty dark days. I've had it for as long as I can remember from puberty. My mother, sister, and other female members of my family also have it. Years ago, when I was 15-ish, I had the ultrasound to see if I had PCOS, and it came back with nothing. I didn't have any cysts on my ovaries, but was diagnosed with PCOS. I'm planning to do an adrenal hormone test soon to help reduce the hair growth through diet. Is it actually possible, or will I be stuck with it forever? I get laser IPL treatment on the areas, which I'm sure isn't great for me, but I have some serious confidence and body image issues from it, and I want to make myself feel better. Thank you so much for all that you do for this community. I can't tell you how much I've learned since discovering you. You're an incredible human being. Thank you, Anastasia. That means a lot to me, and I'd love to be able to help you. So, couple things I want to go through. Now, and I totally understand why you feel like you'd be ashamed about this. However, I want you to view it from a different lens. And that's that I don't think that you should be ashamed about this. We as human beings are all unique in our own way. We all have things about ourselves that we might not particularly like. Not because of us, but simply because of how we believe other humans will view us because of this thing. Some people, it might be their ears. Other, it might be their nose. Some people might feel they're too thin. People might feel they're overweight. Some people feel like they don't have any body hair. Like as a male, I've heard males say that before. Some females or males feel they have too much body hair. There's always going to be something, Anastasia. So I want you to know that first. We all have something, right? Just think of it that way. So this is your thing that you worry about. And again, everyone has their own thing to worry about. So what I would say is this. One, we want to move past this as in something that you're overly concerned and worried about. Now, again, I understand it from a cultural-based perspective. So let's work on this to the best that we can. So one, some women and some men as well are naturally going to have more body hair. That's within the genetics, right? So that I can actually give you to genetics. Now, what would cause the hair, though, to be more coarse or to grow more around the nipples as a female or to be thicker in general? Like, why would it keep growing back, even though you're having laser treatments and all of those items? Well, one is absolutely higher levels of testosterone. Okay, that's absolutely one of them. Another one, just like you said about PCOS, is imbalanced blood sugar levels, glucose levels. All right, we want to look at that. And another item about that is we want to look at what levels of estrogen do you have as opposed to progesterone. So for me, just like you just named, there's nothing more important than doing the thyroid adrenal hormone test. So if you were to run zero other tests, no other test, I would run the thyroid adrenal hormone. If you have higher levels of testosterone, we can help you with that. There are great herbal products that we use every day in our practice, and we see the testosterone levels just be cut in half with women. Not too low, but they're already high, right? So this is something that I teach inside of the Integrative Health Practitioner course and certification as well. What to do, we teach this in level 2 if someone has the high levels of testosterone as a female. And we can lower those naturally. So, and same with blood sugar. There's a great product that we have right now over at Equilibrium Nutrition called Glucose Support. But how do you know if you need it? Well, you can run your fasting glucose first thing in the morning, but you can also run a lab test called the thyroid adrenal hormone that contains your insulin levels and your hemoglobin A1C. So, Anastasia, I want to approach this from 2 ways, 3 ways actually. One, I want to approach it from looking at you for your own self-worth, right? I don't want to look outside of ourselves because I do want people to be drawn to you, attracted to you, to be engaged with you because of who you are, not because of body hair or anything like that. The second way is that we can do natural hair-based removal, processes, and you might be exploring some of those right now. And number 3 is we can absolutely make sure that you do not have higher levels of imbalanced hormones. So we can work on that. So hopefully that was helpful, and I know that we'll be able to move you in the right direction. James is up next. Hi, I just watched one of your podcasts. It was about 2.5 hours long. very interested. You mentioned many things, but you mentioned the sympathetic and parasympathetic mode. And one of the guys in the podcast asked you the best way to get in the parasympathetic mode. And you did not mention something that I have been doing now for about a year. Have you ever tried or heard of earthing? It's amazing and amazingly simple. It's simply that we rarely have skin contact with negative ions on the earth. Just being grounded changes our body's mode from the sympathetic mode to the parasympathetic mode. It lowers your heart rate. It thins the blood. There are over 21 studies about this. They had a study where at Penn State Hospital, they even grounded premature babies in incubators and found what great health effects it had on them, including improved vagal tone. James, thank you for writing in. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. So that was an interview that I did with another podcast. And, on any one given podcast, I can't name everything that you could do, like for sure. But absolutely. And I talk about earthing in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect. And James, hopefully you've checked that out as well. But I do appreciate you bringing this up because grounding is an amazing way to shift the body into that parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the nice way is this. We can do grounding simply by walking outside on a patch of grass first thing in the morning where there's a little bit of that morning dew. Or you can walk near the water, near the ocean, and you get all the negative ions from the ocean as well as from the sand, especially that wet sand down near the water. There are earthing pads. I've talked about those in the past. Those are nice as well. However, if you can get yourself into nature, even better. I've talked about forest bathing before. What does that mean? Well, it means going out hiking in the forest, maybe barefoot if you're able to, and sitting near a lake, being able to go out and camp for a weekend. All of those things are incredible. And I've seen miraculous things, near miraculous things you would call them, in my practice as well, with people really becoming more centered. So, James, thank you for bringing that up. Dawn's up next. I have what seems to be something like an ulcer that won't heal. It is always in the same spot. When I'm eating very healthy, I don't feel it as much, but coffee, processed foods, etc., make it burn. It's an excruciating pain, but just a minor burning sensation all the time. What worries me is that it's been almost a year now without it healing. I'm also not sure, in fact, if it's an ulcer. I went to get a regular doctor, and they gave me antacids that didn't work at all. I was tested by breath and stool for H. pylori and both negative. I had an ultrasound on my abdomen and nothing showed up. I went to a naturopath and they kind of brushed me off saying it was just probably inflammation. I'm 35, healthy, eat well besides some occasional flex meals. Do you know what it could be and any other possibilities? And what is the best test to find out? Thank you so much. All right, Dawn, we can absolutely help you with this. For sure, we can help you with this. So if I could say one thing, for sure, we specialize in digestion. So first off the bat, if you didn't say that you'd already been tested, I would absolutely believe that it's H. pylori. I don't know if you did a 3-day stool test, but that's what I would say that it would be, for sure. One of the things is, even if it doesn't show up, could you actually work on rebalancing the body in terms of H. pylori? And the question is absolutely. I don't even know if it's on the website yet, to be honest with you, but I'll at least point you in that direction. We will have it on there eventually. Head on over to equilibriumnutrition.com and type in mastic gum, MASTIC. And what I would like you to do is take 2 capsules of mastic gum, along with, in my opinion, I would do the entire Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol. And I would do the mastic gum along with that. If you wanted to, you could add the citricidal drops on top. Now, if it's H. pylori, if it's bacterial overgrowth, we'll get it with that. Okay. Now, let's say it's not H. pylori. Let's explore this a little bit more. If you've had an endoscopy, which I'm sure that you have, and they said it's not an ulcer, because again, you can test this. You can go to a GI, you can go to a gastroenterologist, and they can put it literally, you swallow a camera essentially, and they're going to look down your esophagus and stomach to see if they can even see H. pylori or see if they can find an ulcer. Now, if it's an ulcer, it's an ulcer. You need to work on that. We have a great product called Healthy Gut Support that absolutely will help with that. And you can take it along with something like Clean Gut Probiotic or Daily Probiotic Support. Now, one other thing too that works phenomenally well for ulcers is cabbage juice. How much? About 4 to 6 ounces a day. How long? About a month. How many times a day? About twice a day. All of those things help, all right? There's one more thing though. A lot of people get the burning in their stomach with histamine-based issues. So I'm wondering if you are someone that is just sensitive to higher levels of histamine. They produce larger amounts of essentially mast cells and cytokine production and histamine degradation. So what I would say is this. I would remove a lot of the high histamine foods from your diet. I did a previous podcast on this. So if we do it together right now, I'm going to go to stevencabral.com/podcasts. So stevencabral.com/podcasts. Then if you scroll down about one scroll, you'll get to a little search bar and it says search site and you'll just type in histamine and let's see what we get for shows. Because I'm pretty sure I did a show on high histamines. And so all we need to do is scroll down a little bit, and it's episode 879. Eliminate this food group to reduce allergies, brain fog, bloating, and burning. All right? So head on over to 879, and you'll be able to find out all of those high histamine-based foods. After you're done listening to 879, please also check out 754, episode 754, stevencabral.com/754, to find out one more show, which is how to create your own rotation diet. And you'll be able to figure out your trigger foods. And your trigger foods could be those that are smoked, that are aged, that are smoked, aged, fermented, that might all be causing you the burning in your stomach. Okay? So check that out, Don, and I know that we'll be able to get to the bottom of that. Now, if you were to run one test for it, it would absolutely be the stool test, the 3-day stool test at equilibriumnutrition.com, without a doubt. All right. Mary's up next. Dr. Cabral, thank you for your very interesting and informative podcast. I'm very interested in learning how the change in hormones after menopause affects the ability to build muscle. I know we start losing muscle at a certain age, but is there a way to train specifically to combat hormone changes that may limit how much muscle we are able to build? Is it just about nutrition and strength training consistency, or is there more as a woman we can do to combat the negative effects of aging on muscle growth? I've been somewhat successful at the age of 55. I've been trying for 40% carbs, 30% fat, 30% protein for macros. I would really like to learn what is going on with the female body at a later age that may limit us in ways and how to possibly combat that. Thank you. Mary, great question. And I just went over this. It's just good timing. This week on episode, let's get you the show 1189, how to add muscle and tone up naturally. That will give you the nutrition plan, and it will also give you the exercises to do. I wrote a book many years ago in 2010 called A Man's Guide to Muscle and Strength. It's for women too, but my publisher wanted to call it A Man's Guide to Muscle and Strength, so it'd be a little bit more niched, but it's definitely for women as well. That's a program that you can do, any one of those programs. I would start with obviously the starter programs, and I would like to see you training 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Mary. Now, can't recommend enough running a thyroid adrenal hormone test, once you've gone through menopause. Now, again, we can help you through menopause. We can help you perimenopause, but we want to look at what your hormone levels are, because you can do a lot of natural-based things to boost your hormones naturally. And this is really important, because if you boost your hormones naturally without having to use bioidenticals, and you know how you feel about those, then what you're going to be able to do is get a lot of those same benefits as when your hormones were a little more elevated when you were younger. So given that when you do the thyroid adrenal hormone, we can actually promote certain products that would be pro-hormones that would promote your own natural body's ability to increase testosterone naturally, to increase progesterone, estrogen if they've fallen quite low. And that will also help balance cortisol as well. So the thyroid adrenal hormone will give you a personalized way. It's the only way that we could possibly help you. I mean, I can't give you a personalized protocol through the podcast. I would love to. There's just no way to do that because I don't have any data. I haven't done a full intake with you. I don't know how many days a week you're training. I don't know how long you've been training. So all of that comes once you've, of course, run a lab and got your numbers. All right. Daryl's up next. Maybe last question. We'll see. Hey, Dr. Cabral, I'm not personally affected by the Sahara dust, but my friends and some family members are. It exacerbates the sinus issues, nasal allergies, asthma, etc. Are there any recommendations you have to deal with this? We're in the Caribbean region, and this is a regular issue. Any help you could provide would be greatly appreciated. Keep up the good work. Daryl, this is a great question. And you know what? I had no idea what the Sahara dust even was until 2 years ago when I'm down in Puerto Rico and one of my friends down there says, oh, the dust during this time of the year is really tough. I'm like, what do you mean the dust? I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, well, the winds and the Sahara. I'm like, really? The Sahara, sands or dust is moving all the way here? He's like, yes. I was like, I never knew about that. I mean, that's so far out of my wheelhouse, right? So he was explaining it to me and I said, interesting. So there's a big group there and I gave obviously a talk on what I would do. So I'll share that same advice with you right now. So, really what I would do is this. Because I believe it lasts for like 6 weeks or so. So during those 6 weeks, I would do twice a day nasal irrigation. So what does that mean? Well, it means using, if you'd like, the grapefruit seed extract nasal spray, although you don't have to use that every day, but it does help with congestion. And then I would use the neti pot. And inside of the neti pot, I would use a little bit of Himalayan sea salt. And with the Himalayan sea salt, if you ever feel like your nasal passages are getting a little too dry, you could absolutely put a little bit of sesame oil in there. Or what I recommend is this. So I'm going to give you the exact protocol that I would do. If you're starting to get a lot of sinus congestion, I would use the Nutribiotic nasal spray. Okay. After that, every morning in the shower, I would do a neti pot rinse. Okay. If you don't know what a neti pot is, just go to StephenCabral.com/podcast and type in NETI and then space POT. And you'll see the podcast where I did a review on a neti pot. Okay. So that basically cleans out not only your nasal passages, but your sinuses as well. I would do that in the morning in the shower, and then I would do it at night as well. So that's going to clean out the sinus passages. But every time you get out of the shower, what I would also do is put 2 drops of Nasya oil in your nasal passages. So you can simply lie on your back if you want, tilt your head back, and put in 2 drops and breathe in, suck in, so that Nasya oil, which is it's called medicated, but it's not actually a medication. It's herbal medication, which is what Ayurveda uses it for. And that will help. It will help do a couple things. So one, it's antimicrobial. It's made from sesame. And what it also does is it moisturizes those nasal passages and it helps to pick up and trap a lot of that dust. So it's called Nasya oil, Nasya. In the future, we may carry it. It's phenomenal. I use it during the winters, the dry winters in Boston. I know it's snowy outside, but when we put our heat on inside, it makes it very drying. So I try to use the Nasya oil. Plus, the Nasya oil also helps me trap viruses and other things that are coming into my nasal passages. So really nice. Just breathe it in. And then, of course, just spit out anything that comes down the back of your nasal passages. And, after maybe 5 minutes, you can give your nose a little blow. So that's it. That is exactly what I would do. And Daryl, I hope that's helpful. You know what? I am going to keep it at that for today. I appreciate you tuning in. I'll be answering another 8 to 10 questions or so tomorrow. Give my voice a little bit of rest. It's been a long day of consultations, a long day of meetings, and a long day of recordings. So I appreciate you. Thank you as always for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow answering more of our community's questions. Take care, everyone. Hope you're having an amazing weekend.
Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to StephenCabral.com/rainbarrel.